All right, Tracy.
Are we good? I'm going to mute everybody, and then I want to do a test. When you want to talk, if you'll be able to unmute yourself, because just so we don't get any background noises while we're starting. And I don't know if it's going to work or not. I pressed the button, but it doesn't seem to be working. So I just want to welcome everyone to Hyperdoc 101. This is truly a 101. I need to admit one more person. And Kiana and I got together and thought, you know what would we probably most want to learn about in today's environment? And this was what we came up with. And then there's a couple of other things that we have going on later, of course, as well. So has anyone, I can't see your hand. So everyone by now should have been able to get into the Hyperdoc and then be able to start with our Padlet, which we have in there. Oops, all right. And so I was assuming everyone knows who I am. My name is Tracy Canales. I work for ICOE. When I look at the faces and the pictures, I know most of you already. So, so I wasn't too worried about that. Let me let someone, I'm going to be kind of letting people in still. We still have people coming in. We're up to 27. So welcome everyone. Kiana, got anything you want to welcome everyone? And
just thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join Tracy and I in this Hyperdocs 101. Our ICOE menu of services out there, and people are registering on OMS, so it's just telling us that there's a need, or at the very least a curiosity. We know there's lots of feelings out there right now, so for you to just kind of carve out some time for us and want that knowledge just means the world to us. So yeah. Ask questions in the chat. If you look at your little black bar on Zoom and click participants, you should be able to see a list of participants, and also there's a raise hand option there. So Tracy and I are monitoring the chat box for each other, and you should be able to raise your hand in there if you have a question, and we'll monitor that every here and again. Now would be a good time to mute yourself. Tracy did that, but as people come in, it looks like they're still open. So go ahead and mute yourself, and there'll be opportunity for us to all sort of participate together. We just want to keep it interactive. Tracy, you want to move it to the norms? We'll go ahead and do that right away. It's a little slow, but there it is. We're borrowing these from our friends at San Bernardino, Superintendent of Schools. So mute yourself. I don't know if you know, but if you hold down your space bar, it unmutes you for a second. You let go your space bar and it'll mute you right back. So if you do want to participate, if you hit your space bar, it should unmute you for a second to participate. You can also use the chat feature. We're monitoring. We know where you're from, but we don't know if all of you know. So if you are going to contribute to the conversation, you might just say, hey, this is Kiana from ICOE. Hey, this is Robin from ICOE. So just your name, and so identify yourself and then make your comment. And then finally, we are recording. So put your smiles on and pretend like we're all sitting right across the table from each other, because this is going on to our ICOE website. Right. It's good to see all your faces.
And you know what? We have all 30. So when you look at the numbers, last time I checked, we had 30 people signed up on OMS, and we have 30 people in here. So thank you so much for showing up. So these are our norms that we already went over. So just remember that for me, it's important that if someone doesn't want to be recorded, just go ahead and you can chat in the chat box, and then you could turn off your mute and turn off your video, and it would just have your name. And that's okay with us, because we want everyone to feel comfortable asking questions, and know that the only reason we're recording it is so that everyone has something to go back to later. Because if you forget what happened, you want to make sure that you can go back and be able to understand what we went over. So I'm going to continue to advance the screen. Oh, okay, that's going to continue to happen when I go there. So this is about Hyperdocs, right? This is a 101. To get very specific, hyper is a hyperlink. So that's why that's in that name. Doc, it's as in a Google Doc. But really and truly, the idea of Hyperdocs has really started to change. And now it might be slides, it could be maps, it could be sites, it could really be whatever you want. But it really is some sort of a Google Doc or something in Google to be able to put hyperlinks in for students to be able to engage in work. And so we have today a Hyperdoc on Hyperdocs. So you can see the screen, and that we have a Hyperdoc on Hyperdocs with our objective. The teacher will explore the components of a Hyperdoc and learn about the SAMR model. We're really not focusing on that too much, but we really are focusing on the Hyperdoc aspect. So this is a 101. So at the end of the day, the question for all of us is, how can Hyperdocs change my instruction? So if we get it right today in this 1 hour, you should understand what a Hyperdoc is, going beyond what I just said. Learn how to use a Hyperdoc as a learner, because that's what we're going to be using, and then be able to use existing Hyperdocs and templates for your own purpose. So whatever you came here today thinking about, no matter where you're starting, hopefully we're going to be able to hit the goal that you have for yourself. And after today, if we do our job right, that's going to be able to be the norm for everyone. So Kiana's going to get us started on looking at our responses. And I'll start monitoring the chat then, in case there's questions that come up. Kiana, while you're talking.
Will you go ahead and click into the Padlet, please?
Oh, yeah. Uh-oh.
We were getting those. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Scared me. Why isn't, there we go. Let's see, my Meadows, welcome. Got everyone here, Westmoreland. No questions yet, so we're good. Okay, cool. All right. If anyone wasn't able to access the bit.ly, you can go ahead and tell me either out loud, or you could tell me in the chat, and I'll make sure that we deal with that.
Okay, so looking at that Padlet, this is just a quick visual that you can see. We've got our questions, our checking for understanding points sort of. Can you all see that? The Padlet's on the screen?
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, they're all good. So
okay.
We'll be coming back to this same Padlet at different points. So right now your answers all went down the first column, and we can format a Padlet like that. And then we'll come back to it in our second stop and our third stop. So all of our ideas are going to be captured right here on this one Padlet. So just looking at that, some are saying, well, you just know it's a document. You just, I can't scroll with it. But you all can see. So
I'll
Tracy.
Scroll. I'm scrolling.
It's okay.
Let's just here. Cool, wait, I can see that people we already coming with understanding that there's links, right? That it's a Google. I heard was someone in here, Amanda was saying Marilyn McAllister introduced her to it. A lot of us are not sure what it really is, some sort of interactive document. So we've got a lot going on here. In here, let's see, Madeline couldn't get to it or go anywhere. Madeline, is that still an issue?
Just type it in the chat.
Yes, it's still, I couldn't get it to link.
Okay, let's,
type your name, your email in the chat if you don't mind, and I'll just email the link straight to you.
Good job. Okay. We'll make sure you can get it though. We don't want that to be an issue. Let's see. I'm hoping that there's no one that I need to manage. I think we're all still good. Okay, good. I'm afraid someone's going to come in when we're mid-session and I'm not able to admit them in. We're using the waiting room because of all the issues they've been having, but I just want to make sure that they're still going to be able to get in here. Okay, so move on. Kiana, while you're dealing with that, actually you want me to deal with that while you?
No, I can't move the slides, Trace, so you just, there we go.
You can't read the slides?
No, you're in charge of the slides right now.
Yeah, I know.
There we go. So it's a good thing that I don't really have to say much now, because that's part of the beauty of Hyperdocs. And if you notice, we'll talk more about it towards the end, but you'll notice the banners going across. We already did the engage. So we're setting this in the context of a 5E lesson. So the first E was engage, and you told us a little bit about you knew about Hyperdocs. And now you can either follow on the slides or follow on the Hyperdoc, because that's going to guide us now. You are going to have 3 minutes. So 3 minutes on your own. You'll notice that in this explore piece of the Hyperdoc, there are some live links. So part of the beauty is it's your self-guided learning. You can do things in order. You can go from the back to the front. You can start in the middle. But as much as you can take a look at in these next 3 minutes, we want you to guide your own learning and be ready to share something more that you're learning about what Hyperdocs are and what they're not. Okay, so 3 minutes on your own. In the Explore section, click around and find out some things about Hyperdocs. So you can start now. In the chat, go ahead and give kind of a tweet-sized comment about what you're learning about Hyperdocs and just those few little resources that we have there.
And I actually Googled, because I don't know tweets that well. I Googled, it's roughly around 20 words, because it was characters. I was like, well, I need to know about words. So it's roughly around 20 words. Just what you collected from that first little, very small, dip your toes in the water, not quite a dive.
Yes, thank you, John. They should be interactive.
Madeline, I'm glad you got in. Think we're good. We see engaging and interactive. Oh, I'm gonna get another participant in. We have Jeanette coming in now. My internet is very slow, so.
Thank you for that comment, Karamia. Yes, collaboration is what makes it different than just a bunch of links hanging out on a Google Doc, or at least the option to collaborate.
I thought a Hyperdoc was links. As did I at one point. We'll talk about that. Thank you for that. Online, tool to collaborate. Yes, definitely. All of this. What did Danielle say? Students apply what they learn for sure. Got it. Yeah, thank you for putting your name in too so we can see it. I'm not ever sure if, I know I can always see it, but I'm not sure if in the chat everybody else can, unless you put it in there.
All right, so let's move to the next, Tracy.
Links. Yes, definitely. I get caught up in that chat box. You guys might have to remind me to come back sometimes.
So thank you. Thank you for participating in that second step of a 5E lesson. So you engaged. Then you got a little opportunity to explore on your own. We didn't come right out with, you know, telling you what it is, how it is, why it is. And then the third part of that E is explain. So we just wanted to tell you a little bit about our own journeys with Hyperdocs. So coming up on about 2 years ago now, I was able to sit with a gal called Lisa Heifel. And so if you know about hyperdocs.co, that is the Hyperdocs, like the official website, which we'll be showing you later. So I got to like literally hear from the author of the book on this topic about how to use them. And she took us through a learning experience, and I said, for the very first time, I understand not just what student-centered instruction is, but this is like a practical way that I would be able to do it. Like I could actually see myself doing this, you know, in the classroom setting. This would free me up for centers. Like there were so many possibilities with this format that she was showing us called a Hyperdoc. And what she called it at first, she said, but it wasn't a sticky, it didn't stick to, the name didn't, but she called it a multimedia text set. So you know that when the Common Core came around, we started talking about texts in conversation with one another. Texts that were all about the same topic, but maybe took different points of view, or maybe you looked at a narrative with an expository text about the same topic. So that's what these were originally designed to do, was in one spot, put several types of text about the same topic all together, so that kids could access the topic, they could access the topic in lots of different ways. So of course I come from this meeting, mind you, there are only like 10 of us in this meeting with the author of the book. So I come back from this meeting, and first I run into Tracy and say, look at this thing called the Hyperdoc and what you can do with it. And so like it often does in our office, one of us learns, we share, and then we tweak and turn and make it better, dig in the internet and find all kinds of fabulous things. So that's sort of my introduction and beginning of my journey with Hyperdocs, and it touched and went on to Tracy.
So that created a light bulb in my head. I was like, everyone else, a lot of us have been saying this in the chat today, that, oh wait, I kind of thought it was just a document with some links. Well, if I can get my slides to advance, so did I. So I had been thinking all this time that the virtual binder that I had created with a bit.ly and with all these links, so all of those are highlighted links that you see over there for my virtual binder. And it was great because I had 8 pages worth of stuff for history social studies teachers. It was like giving someone my computer, and every resource I ever had, I could put in there. So I thought that was great. When I first learned about hyperlinking, you know, and that you could actually do that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I now have a way I can give everybody. So every training, I'd give them the virtual binder, and I continue to grow it as my resources grew. So that was well and good. But what this did is the light bulb turned on. Oh, so now I can recreate those links into something that's actually more user-friendly for the person who comes to that specific training. So I put my PBIS classroom resources one here, because I teach, right, history, social studies, pedagogy, and I also teach PBIS. So if you look at this, it's completely different than the mountain of resources. It's focused on whatever topic that I'm teaching that day. There are pictures to show what that thing looks like when they get there. Also, there's verbs. So we're going to walk through that type of that Hyperdoc idea today. But actually, the template that I have up here, we call it a game board template. It's different than many of the ones we're going to show you. So by the end of today, you're going to know so many templates and have so many samples that you can start with. But for me, it was just like everyone else. That light bulb turned on. I was like, this is how we do it. I was like, oh boy, that changed everything. And it totally changed how I interact with my workshops. And at the same time, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, it could totally change the way I teach. So that's kind of that light bulb story and kind of where we're going. Now, I want to make sure that everyone can see the screen, because I have the group chat here. Can you guys see my screen, or am I covering things up with that?
You're good.
Okay, because I have the chat, because I'm worried when someone has a question, I won't see it. So one thing that the Hyperdoc does is it utilizes the idea of a verb. So for each link that you put in, you're going to put some sort of a verb. So the Hyperdoc that I have up here, I actually borrowed and made a copy, made it mine. And this is for argument writing. So my whole idea here is that my students are going to look at these, watch these, read these, whatever it says, and in the end, going to end up writing a piece of argument writing. So you can see that if you look at the verbs, it says to compare. So if they click on that, they're going to compare a statistic. The ponder is an NPR movie. The view, they're going to be looking at a picture. There's some videos on here. This is because we have all types of students, right? So some of our students are going to need, this is the input part. What am I, the multiple sources? They're going to be writing from sources, but some of our students are going to need to have something to watch. They're going to need a video. So this really gives choice. That's one thing. Engagement, but it's all focused on that one thing. By the way, if you link this, if you click on this when you get this presentation, it links you to a copy of this actual one that I use. So if you want to make a copy, make it yours, you certainly can. But the verb is really important, because if you remember my virtual binder, it didn't tell them what to do with it. It was like, hey man, here's this resource, it's really great. And I had tons of words, and this really shortens it and gets down to the crux of what it is you want them to do. Yeah. So that's the first thing about Hyperdocs, is that it utilizes the idea of verbs, because that sets in motion what they need to do. The second part we wanted to explain before we have you go and jump in on your own is Kiana, and that is the logic of links and some other things.
So just, you keep hearing Tracy say, make a copy and make it your own. Make a copy and make it your own. And that is the spirit with which the ladies who wrote the Hyperdoc handbook, that's the way they started their movement. So there's a hashtag called make a copy and make it your own, because teachers are sharing. So even this one, if you see down at the bottom of Chocolate Milk of Tracy's, you'll see that it is a template designed by this gal, Genevieve. And then we like to use the words remixed by and then you give yourself credit. So if you're taking somebody's making a copy in Google and making it your own, that's just sort of it's the norm of this community who uses Hyperdocs, is to give credit at the bottom, leave them there, and then say remixed by, and then put your information. So lots of people like to put their Twitter handle down there so people can find the original. Sorry, I have got my two screens going on. But when you do that, right, when you make a copy and make it your own, it's like, great, I have this great resource, but you do have to do your due diligence and take the time to go through and click every link on there. If you want a reference document, an article to live in your Google Doc, you need to make a copy and then erase the link that's on there and put your version of the copy there. I don't usually do it with articles and links to websites and things like that, but I definitely do it on my checks for understanding. So you notice that we used Padlet today to collect some of your thinking, to check for your understanding and have a place to capture our thinking. We had to erase the link that was there, make our own version and re-put the link, so that when people click that and give us their answers on a Google form or in Padlet or in any of these other platforms, that their answers are coming to me, the teacher. So yes, make a copy. It's that simple. Make a copy, make it your own. But there is some work behind it to make sure that all those copies are taking kids to the places that you want them to go, and that their answers, their responses are coming back where you want them to go, where you'll be able to give them feedback. Another trick of the trade when it comes to the links is to make a link that forces them to make a copy. And we can put a resource in the follow-up. Tracy, will you take that note? We'll put a resource in the follow-up that teaches you how to do that. Really, all you have to do is change the ending of the URL address from edit to copy and use that in your link. And whenever somebody tries to open that link, it'll force them to make a copy, and it'll automatically live in their own Google Drive and not in yours. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know Google too much yet, know that we have, I think tomorrow, Google Classroom 101, or Google 101 somewhere on our menu. So we've got time marked out for that if you need to know more about Google. If you're not using Google Classroom, but you want to use Google Docs, it is possible. You'll want to make sure that students share copies or share back with you if you're not in Google Classroom, and that they give you rights so that you can make comments on their work, that you can co-edit their work. You'll have to get some kind of system down inside of your own Google Drive to keep everything organized if you're working outside of Google Classroom. But if you're working inside of Google Classroom, there's lots of steps that you won't have to take because, all of those copies you'll already be able to see. And then the other thing to think about in these things are naming conventions. So things like unit 3 dot Givens dot November, dot draft 1. So think about how you want to name things, or how you want to train your students to name things so that they can find them in your Google Classroom and your Google Drive, so that there's a pattern to the way that you name your assignments and the pattern to the way that you name your Hyperdocs, so that they go with your units. There's just some things to think about to kind of troubleshoot before you get into a lesson and go, that didn't work the way I wanted it to. So let's take a pause here, Trace, and
I've been asking if everyone has questions, so we're not
good.
there yet.
Okay.
No questions yet? I got one. I do use Google Classroom. What I just upload the Hyperdoc is that each student will get a copy.
Yep. So that's the beauty of working inside of Google Classroom, is that it already knows your students. So it's going to force a copy for them anyway, and it'll be shared back with you anyway. So that bullet was specifically for teachers that are working outside, don't have the capability at school, or kids don't have the Google Universe going on, working outside of Google Classroom.
Thank you, Kiana. So right now we're still in that explain aspect of our Hyperdoc, and we just spent a moment, teacher time, right? We kind of front loaded and we did some explaining, we talked about it, and now we're gonna give a little bit of a deeper dive. So we're gonna give you 5 minutes, and in your Hyperdoc that you all are in already, in the explain part, there are some things that you can look at. And so we're gonna have a 5-minute a deep dive explain. And so that gives everyone a chance to do their own learning. And so if you're in that Hyperdoc, you're going to be able to do that. And I will set the timer. But before we do that, does anyone have a question? I'm not seeing any. I know I keep typing. Does anyone have questions? Crickets over here in the chat. So I just want to make sure if you have any question at all, just type it in. We're going to make sure that we answer those today if we can. If we can't, we'll find the answer and we'll get it back to you later. So I want to make sure that I want this to be at everyone's level so that you can actually go and show someone else. Like when you feel so comfortable that you could explain it to someone else, that's what we want. So I'm going to set the timer. So what you're going to do right now is you're in the part of the Hyperdoc where it's the red where the explain. I'll set the timer. Oh, maybe I'm not. It didn't want to start for me. Ken, I think that might just be a picture. Strange.
Oh.
I'm setting my timer on my phone. It's going to work out just fine.
So you have some choice right now, another beauty of a Hyperdoc. So get in there, click all 3 links, the one that suits your soul, go ahead and study that. And your purpose for viewing is how can Hyperdocs change my instruction?
I love that most of us see a recurring theme about ownership and differentiation, engagement, less teacher talk. Yeah. And so, you know, for me and for a lot of history teachers, that's a big deal, right? We have these slides that they're great and they, you know, there are these wonderful lessons that we spent years putting together. Those can be part of the Hyperdoc, right? So, and you could even screencastify it yourself. I think that's how you say it, doing a little bit of a lecture. You know, you then could put a crash course video. So the way my brain went as far as history, I'm like, wow, I'm not doing away with things that I needed for that input. I'm just adding to. I love that we put own time, their own pace.
You're breaking up just a little bit,
ability. I do apologize. I do have a very unstable internet connection, so this we will come in and out. Kiana, I noticed that I've been trying either my house and my Wi-Fi. Neither one seems to be happy in my kitchen. So we'll continue to. The struggle is real for all of us, I'm sure. What I was saying is that students at their own pace and set to their ability. That's huge for me, and so I really love that you guys made that same connection. Let me make sure that I'm not missing any questions.
Go back to the slide there, Trace. Let's go back to, let's move on to elaborate.
Okay. I'm checking the chat box at the same time. Okay, thank you. So, elaborate. We're going to elaborate on what we explained, and every single one of these is an actual link to a resource. So you can see here, we have elementary, secondary samples, content area search. There are some other samples of a close read, a Hyperdoc made on Google Sites, which is incredible. There are templates to access. Then there is a template with a menu of virtual options that you can access. There's some digital learning website and access to a really great website that it has many templates. We wanted to make sure and put that in here. And of course, the original, the OG, Hyperdoc Company website, right? Hyperdoc Co. is who wrote the book, Michael, that you were talking about that you had. That's those ladies. There's 3 of them. They're incredible. They're kind of the ones that this kind of was birthed out of. And then also you can see on this elaborate, there is access to all of today's materials. So right now, we're going to take some time to explore this, just like we did a minute ago. And Kiana's going to say something first, I think, because we were going to have a conversation before we do. So before you go ahead, before you explore, we just want to explain a couple things.
Yeah,
about
so
the 5E.
The other struggle that's very real right now is, you know, getting lots of stuff and then not knowing where to go back and find it. So we wanted just to call out a few things. So right away you're all realizing that I was giving someone a document with links and not really thinking necessarily about the pedagogy behind it, right? So we wanted to really model, if you've been working with John at all in NGSS or any of the other content areas, the 5E lesson plan is kind of a framework that we're all, you know, buying into. So that is one of the designs, and we wanted to really help you get acquainted with that. Just some things about the Explore, that is the part for student agency where kids, you know, there's enough in there that any kid could find something that will help them sink their teeth into. So whatever you choose to engage them with, everyone should be able to have an opportunity to participate, an opportunity at the floor and at the ceiling. The Explore, like I said, is more if we were in the traditional setting, that would be an opportunity where everyone could be going into what they like and get some choice, while I pull back some students that I know need my time and attention in a smaller group setting, and I could help them in that time. I guess that goes the same for many of these sections. There's enough for kids who are able to run and reach, and there's enough for students who may struggle to access and maybe even build up older skills around that topic. So the pedagogy of the 5E lesson is important, and or the verbs that you choose are important.
Yeah. And I really kind of saw this when you look at that 5E template, the one with the little flowers over here. You really kind of see it too, is that whole idea of gradual release, right? So we got that, we know we all are used to the hook. So we've got that engagement, and then we move into that explore, where it can be in groups, but it's that part of you all do it, right? Everyone might be doing something together. We might have small groups. It might end up being with partners, even independently. And then they really start to dive into the content, and then move into that extension. So I really like the way it's set up, but this is only one of many templates. We could only focus on one today, so we wanted to make sure that we give you that. And if you look on the other side, that template is a little different. It just kind of breaks each part down a little more in depth. So I really appreciated that. So remember, these are all hyperlinks, so you can link to these resources. It is our Hyperdoc. So we're gonna actually move on now and let you explore. Kiana?
Oh, I was gonna say, just do click into the hyperdocs.co.
Sorry.
Just the landing page.
One more time.
Oh, there it is.
What do you want? Sorry.
You're good.
Are we good? All right. You're going to hear the music though. Again, maybe not.
No, go ahead. We're doing the 5?
We got a slow internet, so. So that was the Whopper, right? You can have it your way. We're giving you this whole, you can have everything on it, or you can just be simple. Some people just want the meat and the cheese and the bread. Some people don't even want the cheese. So we want you to have time right now. We're elaborating. We're giving you more information than you really need right now. But to explore one of these areas, they're all hyperlinks. And so you have this in your Hyperdoc. This one right here that I showed you that says virtual gift, that's the one that says access a template with a menu of virtual options here. That's that one. That just was incredible to me. It blew my mind. I don't know if I'm ready. Like, that's the Whopper with everything on it and more, right? That might be more than some of us might want to go to right now, but for some of you that are quite googly or very computer using educator, you might want to start checking at that one. So we just want you to have 5 minutes. I think we could do 5. It's 3:50. So we're going to do 3 minutes to explore, but remember, this is for you to explore later too. So I'm going to do a quick 3-minute timer now that I'm not muted, and everyone explore away. All right, so I advanced to the next slide just so everyone could see that we're returning back into, oh, I gotta get someone in, back into our Padlet, our collaborative Padlet. And just go ahead and put in 3 new things you learned, 2 resources that you might explore further, and most importantly is 1 goal or 1 resource. Like, where will you want to put this into your instruction next?
Hey Trace, maybe we can talk about those things out loud first, and then just call that our closer.
Sure, I'm good with that.
You guys don't even understand. I'm like dying for teacher voices.
I know,
We miss
me
you.
too.
We miss our trainings. We miss interacting with you. So feel free to just unmute yourself. You can hit the space bar and it'll unmute you for just that second.
Actually, I can unmute everybody, but won't we get
Well, they can
feedback?
do it. I think if you gave them the power, they can do it. So just as you feel drawn, either something you're taking away, something you're going to try, a big aha, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, sorry.
I see you, Mandy.
Sorry. I want you to have it your way. And your way means?
Tracy.
Yes.
Hi,
How
Question
are
for you.
you?
If-
Yes, ma'am.
If I am creating a Google slide, hi, fine, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna create a Google slide. Within my Google slide, I will place this Hyperdoc.
You can do that like we did. Yes,
Yes.
you can. So for
Could
us,
you freeze?
can you hear me? Hi, my internet. Can anyone hear me?
Okay.
Yana, can you
All
hear
right.
me?
We hear
Okay.
you, Trace.
Do you mind if
We
I
can hear you.
exit?
Yes, yes.
May I exit right here from full screen, you guys, just so I can answer that question easily? So I'm just gonna, I think I'm gonna do that. I'm not really sure how that's gonna happen. So if I were wanting to, if I escape, is that gonna escape everybody? Because I just wanna escape from my full presentation here, my presentation mode, to be honest with you.
All
But I
right.
still wanna share.
There.
The short answer though, Samantha, is yes. You would maybe create a bit.ly or a short URL, a tiny URL, and put that in your link so it's easy for kids to type in.
So
If you're using,
that's what I just did, right? Is that what you were talking about, Martha? What I just did? So if you notice, all I did, I clicked on that slide. I clicked and it magically went
Yes.
here. But it wasn't magic, right? I did the whole share, and I'm just gonna do it right now. So I did the share, make it so
Okay.
everyone can see it, got the shareable link, right? And then I'm gonna do it real quick, okay? So I'm gonna act like I'm gonna be in a presentation. I wanna do it to show
Tracy,
you.
all you have to
Martha-
do is screen.
Mark, I can't hear you, Jeanette, you're not coming in.
So if you stop sharing your screen and then exit presentation mode, then you'll be able to see that you have. Then you
Okay.
share it again.
Can she see what I'm doing right now? Can you guys see that I got onto another? I'm so scared you guys can't see. Okay.
Yes.
So if I wanted to put a document in, all I'm gonna do is bring my document in, right? Do you see that? That's the picture of the document. But then I'm gonna click on the document, and right here, there's a little, it looks like a paper clip. So you're gonna put that there, and then you're gonna put this in there,
Right.
and then that's it. Is that what your question was, Martha?
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Got it. Got it.
Was Noemi? Okay,
Yes,
okay,
got it.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so okay,
Yes.
and so it's always hiding up here though, just so you know, because we're used to it being in the right click, and when you do it on a picture, it's up here. For some people that might not mean anything, but for me it's huge because I all the time can't find it. I'm like, where'd the link go? Where'd the link go? Oh, it's up there on the toolbar. So that, I don't know if that's what you have happened to you too, but it happens to me all the time. So we did a lot of that in here, right? We did. Every time we had a picture of a Padlet or something, that link, that's what I did to get it there. So then the students would be able to go from there to the actual Hyperdoc. You could also make your slide itself the Hyperdoc. Your whole presentation could be the Hyperdoc as well. That's another way you could do it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like
Thank
each
you.
one of those parts would be a slide. You're welcome. I hope that helped. Okay, so anyone have any ideas?
Tracy, hold on. I see Marie has a hand up. Do you still have a question, Marie?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm hoping
Thanks.
that in the chat, there was questions about using Hyperdocs with little students, with young students, maybe in the early elementary grades. I'm hoping that during that extend, you were able to click into the massive amount of resources for the elementary grades. I'm wondering if there are still questions floating around about that.
I'm reading all the chats.
Yeah, in the chat, I also connected just a different kind of format. I put in there the Sanger designated ELD that they put out in their whole district by grade level. And the format is called a choice board. So by week and by subject or by domain, students get to pick, and all they're asking for kids to put an X on that cover sheet if they did the activity. So it's things like, watch that one might be for students who don't have access to tech, are low tech or no tech. If a choice board goes home with recommendations for things that kids can do, right? Organize a cupboard, read a book with your sister, read a book with a sibling, or So that just in the chat was a link to the Sanger designated ELD, and that style is called a choice board.
So as you can see on the screen right here, we have more resources and of course our remote learning offerings. I'm not putting a plug in for Friday, but I really am, because one thing I want to go kind of kick back to is that we had a check for understanding for each portion of what we did today. I'll be doing it's kind of more of an interactive collaborative. I'm going to be introducing #BookSnaps on Friday, and we'll actually create one. So I would love to invite everyone back for that. And so we'll participate in one, but it's pretty short and sweet, but it definitely can be used with Hyperdocs. And so I know that if some of you have gone to my trainings before, you've probably done them with me already. And so we're going to be doing that. So if you, between now and then, start to create a Hyperdoc, that could be one thing that you add to it. So I would love if you make it back. And we have so many great sessions that all of the curriculum coordinators have been working really hard to put together, and really in response to the needs that we're getting from people saying what they need. And so if you actually do come up needs, to communicate with us is a really good idea too. So notice we have a calendar.
I've got a question in the chat about whether a Hyperdoc is an app, or if it's just it is not. It is using the tools within and without outside of the Google universe. Some people like to build them in Google Drawings, make their template in that because it's more flexible. I like using Google Slides because you don't have to fight with margins or headers or footers, and half of your boxes don't fall onto the other page. So some people prefer the freedom of a Google Slide. Some people are working with templates already in Google Docs and they force them onto one page, or they don't care if they spill onto multiple pages. So Google is the vehicle, and we call it mashups. We might have to mash up two apps to get what we want. So for instance, I might have to mash up my, inside of my Google Slides, I might have to mash up YouTube and Google Forms in my slide to get what I want to check for understanding or to collect the assignment. But that's a teacher who, doesn't have a lot of experience with Google Classroom. Google Classroom solves a lot of those workarounds that we were doing when we didn't have access to it. But outside of that, it doesn't limit you. It just might take a couple extra steps.
Thank you, Kiana. So one thing we want to make clear is this calendar that we have in front of us right now, the remote learning, we're going to add one more session to it. And that is the session of a comeback kid. So all 34 of us, well, there were 34, now there's 33. So I wanted to hurry up and get it in before. Everyone's got some idea they're going to do. And some of us think that it has to be the whole whopper to be something to present and show to other people. But we really want to come back again for another hour. It's going to be Hyperdocs 102, not even 201, so that we can share what we've done, share any missteps or issues that we're having, so that we can really be a community of practice with these Hyperdocs, so that we can continue to share them with each other and really continue our learning. So make sure that you come back and see us and sign up. We are actually, as soon as we calendar it, we're going to send that email to everyone that was signed up on OMS. So you'll be able to get it. And then it'll also be on the calendar as well, so you can come in. And other people can come in too. It's not like just us. But I really wanted to have an opportunity for us to share with each other. And you know, at the beginning we had that stare where I'm starting here and my goal is, well, your goal is wherever it is. It's whatever this inspired you to do is the thing that we want to hear and that we want to be able to collaborate on, because you're the practitioners and you're the ones that are going to be doing the great things with this stuff. So I just want to say thank you very much for taking a little bit over an hour. We're 4 minutes over. And if you have any more questions, you can type them there. We'll stay on a little bit just in case. Or if you have anything to say for just for the sake of saying it right now, we're glad to hear it. And I just want to say thanks a lot. Kiana?
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you soon. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Be safe, be healthy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye. It was good seeing you guys.
You too. I love seeing all our faces. I'll see you again soon, Lisa, because